Good morning, guys. It is Monday, May 4th. I hope everybody's having a good start to your week. Just wanted to add another class here to the online judging series. This is going to be a performance Yorkshire Gilt class. Definitely wanted to add another performance class. I think it's good for you guys to practice through EPDs and work with those scenarios, and hopefully incorporate those scenarios into your reasons and to be able to use those to your advantage, make you score a little better in the reasons room. And so it's a really good class of Yorkshire Gilt. It's very high quality, lots of differences to talk definitely in this particular class. And so again, I hope this judging series is helping you. We will continue to add one or two classes every week for you to go through. That way you can kind of have some different setups to your disposal. So we'll go through this again. We'll show you the EPDs, the scenario, go through each individual animal. I'll go back through, I'll describe kind of the EPD setup to you, and then we'll get an official placing with some cuts here at the end. So this will be class number 5, Performance Yorkshire Gilts. Here is your set of EPDs and your scenario there at the bottom. Here is gilt number 1. Gilt number 2. Gilt number 3. And gilt number 4. Here is your photo with all 4 of them put together. Again, remember to pause through these, get you a placing. 1 on the top left, 2 on the top right, 3 on the bottom left, 4 there on the bottom right. So you want to pause the video, get you a placing here, write that down, and we'll go back through there and we'll describe this class and go through the EPD set. Okay, so looking through the EPDs, and you know, the one thing that you have to identify with is the difference between genetics and actual data. So there's 2 actual data pieces here, the loin eye area and the back fat measurement. Those are actual. The other are EPDs. So make sure you distinguish between the 2 of those if you're talking this class, and you don't want to get mixed up on the difference between those as you're talking them. So make sure you have that distinguished. You go through the data set here, you have days to 250. That's obviously a growth EPD, and that's actually, you want it to be lower the better. So the negative 2.3 EPD there on number 1, that's the best in that particular column. That means she grew the quickest. She had the least amount of days to 250 pounds. Then you have the number born alive EPD. That goes back to how prolific that their sow is, the mother to these gilts is. And you obviously want that to be higher the better. 21-day litter weight, that's also a growth measurement. We want that to be higher the better. Loin eye area, higher the better. And then back fat, we kind of want somewhere in the middle. And back fat's not a huge EPD to really throw a whole lot of stock into. Just maybe a talking difference. You obviously don't want it to be too high or too low, but definitely somewhere there in the middle. So, your scenario. You want to rank these gilts as they should be used as replacements in a purebred Yorkshire operation. This breeder prides themselves on selling high-quality boar pigs to other prominent breeders across the country, as well as marketing super competitive show pigs. Gilts will be housed in total confinement. So, what you should take away from that is we're making boars, right? We're making purebred boars that we are going to sell to other purebred herdsmen, people that are raising pigs, and we're going to make show pigs. So those are the 2 things you'll want to bring up throughout the set. We also know that these gilts will be housed in total confinement. So that what that lets us know is that these things have to be sound. Structure, functionality is huge, as it always is, but definitely throw an emphasis on that when you see the total confinement piece added in the scenario. Just taking an outside view of these EPDs here up top, or the set of data that you have, I think you should probably notice that one has a pretty good set. She's very good across the board, probably the best across the board just in terms of her EPD profile. We look at number 2, she's pretty balanced, okay? She's pretty balanced as well as number 4. Number 4 is pretty balanced, and so we would say certainly 2 and 4 are acceptable in terms of their data set. If we go to number 3, we may not be as impressed. Number 3 is pretty low in a few columns. Definitely the lowest in every column, and so that's definitely not a good sign. But again, I encourage you guys, if you're in a live contest, to evaluate the animals first and then go back to the data to help you sort through those, because again, we talked about last time, just because an animal has really good data does not mean that they automatically go in the top pair, and just because an animal doesn't have really good data doesn't mean they can't go in the top pair. So kind of got to keep that stuff in mind as we sort through these. So we go to number 1. The number 1 gilt, I think the thing that you should initially notice about this one is, boy, is she powerful. Really big forearm, big back gilt that I think super stout pin, has a bunch of shape there to her lower stifle. She's really big-footed and stout bone, a gilt that I guarantee you goes to the ground with a ton of toe spread. She's really big and massive, super productive in terms of her center skeleton. You have to appreciate the depth that she comes with there to her center body. So again, a lot of power, a lot of mass in this particular gilt that you certainly have to appreciate. And then again, along with her super good data set, we have to like that as well. Things that I've maybe get a little bit picky about this one, I'd like to stretch her out, make her a little bit longer spined. She wants to get off in her spine ever so slightly up high as well. And then maybe in terms of her shoulder or blade angle there up front, I'd like to lay her back in front in terms of her blade. Looks like she maybe wants to toe out ever so slightly up front, maybe make her a little more female-like in her presence there up front. But again, super powerful, really big-bodied gilt that looks maternal in her center skeleton. Rear leg looks good in terms of her structure. I just maybe would want to fix her blade, lay her back there a little bit, maybe square her up in terms of her toe shape up front, make her a little more female-like. But this, like I said, a pretty nice gilt. So here we go to number 2. The number 2 gilt, again, we thought her data set was pretty consistent, so she's good there. This particular gilt, I think, is one that is super long-bodied, super feminine and good-looking in terms of the way that she balances up from the side. She's level up top. She's square out of her hip. She's a pretty big-footed, stout bone gilt that I think has some power to her. Maybe not as massive as number 1, but certainly has enough. She looks maternal in terms of her center body. Maybe not quite the body depth as number 1, but still plenty. She's one that I think in terms of structure, the angle to her blade looks really good. She's a lot of C-shape to her knee. You have to appreciate that. For me, she's stretching out a little bit in terms of her hind leg, but maybe she is a little straight in terms of the set to her hock, so you'd certainly want to fix that from a structural standpoint. But a gilt that has enough power, a gilt that's good balance from the outside. Maybe you'd want to fix her hind leg just a little bit, maybe give her a little more angle there to her rear hock. But again, a good kind of a gilt that balances up, has some body, has some function. Pretty good about everywhere. That's just a pretty nice gilt. Pretty complete. So then we go to number 3. Number 3 is one that is awfully shaped up. If you study her over the top side of her skeleton, man, is she grooved up high. She has a relative amount of power to her as well for being a Yorkshire gilt. Relatively big-footed, stout bone. Don't have any questions in that regard. She's one that I guess maybe doesn't hit you with as much pop and power in terms of width and dimension, especially in comparison to number 1. And where I really struggle with this particular gilt from a design standpoint, I think she's super straight-bladed there up front. I think she's one that needs to be fixed over the top side of her skeleton and maybe level her out of her hip a little bit. She looks a little straight in terms of her rear leg structure. So my biggest question mark on this one would be structure. She also doesn't look as robust and as deep in terms of her center skeleton. I think she looks a little flat-sided. And so from a functionality standpoint, maybe she misses the mark. And that's something that we definitely have to take into account, especially in a set of breeding gilts. One other thing to notice, and I know we talked about this in the last week's set of gilts, you want to have underlines and vulvas, along with notches in your sets. I think we can notice from the outside here, she's a tip vulva gilt, so that'd be a good idea to have on her going into a criticism, this particular gilt in a set of reasons. As we transition into the number 4 female, I think you ought to be pretty impressed pretty quickly with this one. I think we talk about covering the basics of functionality, she certainly does that. I think she's really big-bodied, maternal through her center skeleton. She's super good in her blade angle up front and the C-shape to her knee. Has a good angle and set to her rear leg. She's super level up top and square out of her hip. Really good balance from the outside. You have to appreciate the look and presence that comes with this one. And I think she's got a ton of power. Really big-footed, stout bone, wide and opened up underneath. There's a lot of good things about this gilt. She's really, really pretty hard to pick a hole in. And so, again, due to the fact that she has the good data set that we went over, she's really good phenotypically. This is one we probably ought to be thinking about sorting to the top of our card. So, we go over the 4 of them, and we've got them here in front of us. We talked about 1's the power gilt, right? She's really powerful. She's really massive. 2's got a little more female character. Maybe not as much power, but she's certainly got some female character. 3's the one that I think maybe from a structural standpoint, functionality perspective, we have the most issue with. Not only that, but I failed to mention that her data set's not real good either. And so we ought to be thinking maybe where she goes here. Then you have the number 4 gilt, who's awfully good. She kind of combines everything. And so when you think about that and you keep that in mind, I think she probably needs to sort to the forefront. So we think about this class from an official standpoint. I like this class of Yorkshire Gilts, 4-2-1-3, and I'd get you 5-3 and 5. Again, a really high quality class, but I think you need to find 4 to win pretty easily. Good structured, good bodied gilt that really has the stellar look from the outside. Middle pair is much closer between a set of females that could be more different. I like the female character and extra balance that comes with 2, but if you like the power, the mass that comes with 1, and you like her data set a little better, I could certainly see you go that direction. Only cut you there 3. In the bottom pair, I think that both of these gilts have some design things that you'd like to fix, but I still see 1 as the stouter, wider constructed gilt. I think she is probably the one that's better in terms of her center body, much more maternal in that regard. And then again, we go back to the numbers, she's much more appealing on paper. And so those are the types of things I think you got to think about. Hope this class is good for you. Hope you can get some things out of it to talk, and you enjoy talking it in your free time. Thanks again, everybody, and hope you have an excellent week.